Well, welcome everyone to this afternoon's session, December 2nd, 2025. County Administrator, please call the roll call. Gary?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioner Schrader is out of the office today. Roll call. Commissioner West.
Present.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Roberts.
Here. And thank you, Gary. Would you please introduce our first policy session?
Yes, I will. If I could do a little housekeeping first, we're doing your normally scheduled policy sessions first. Then we will do issues that was rescheduled from earlier this morning at the completion of the last policy session. We are in this different space this week because there are renovations being completed in your hearing room. That will be done by January when you return from your recess. So we'll be in this room for the next 3 weeks. With that, so if you want to speak today, commissioners, do the old-fashioned raise your table tent, please, because there's no lighting system in here, so the chair can recognize you. With that, our first policy session today is Zoning and Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan Amendments, file ZDO-293. The team from Transportation and Development will present, but it will be kicked off by Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead, please, Dan.
Great. Thank you so much, Gary. Chair Roberts and Commissioners, for those of you who are new to this, I sent an informational email to you last week regarding our long-range planning work program for 2025 through 2027. It is customary with every plan, we include, as a part of that plan, a minor and time-sensitive amendments package. We are here to discuss that package with you today. I'm not going to waste any more of your valuable time, so I'm going to ask Jennifer Hughes, our planning director, and Martha Fritzie, our principal planner, are going to come up here and kind of run through the packet as proposed today, and they'll be able to answer any questions you might have. So with that.
Hi, good morning.
Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Hughes, and I'm the County Planning Director. And as Dan mentioned, we're here to talk about our minor and time-sensitive amendments package, or at least the one we're hoping to do with your authorization today to move forward with it. We try to do one of these every year, and we have since 2020, and it's actually worked out to be about every 1 to 2 years, depending on staffing. Some of you may recall I like to call these our good government packages because they do tend to give us opportunities to clean up our code, fix things that cause confusion for applicants and for staff, and to address certain policy issues as long as they don't require a great deal of research and analysis. This year it's maybe a little harder for me to call it our good government package because candidly staff is not necessarily super excited about all of the changes that the state legislature is requiring us to make. But I will say that updating our code to implement those mandates that Martha's going to talk a little bit more about is still the best approach because that way applicants and staff can see all the requirements in one place as opposed to having to try to apply our code and then refer to state law for things that are inconsistent. For purposes of the discussion today, we sorted the potential amendments into 3 buckets. And so Martha is going to talk about that first bucket, which relates to mandates based on state legislation or administrative rulemaking. Take it away.
Oh,
sorry.
hi, good afternoon. Again, I'm Martha Fritzie, Principal Planner here with the Planning and Zoning Group. I'm going to talk real briefly about the legislation that we're proposing, or the pieces of legislation that we're proposing to implement through the minor and time-sensitive amendments package. If you would, I'm going to reference the attachment A, is that what it was called? Where I made just a very, very high-level table of what some of these pieces of legislation are and effectively what they are requiring that we do. I can tell you that this is only a broad brush, and this is only a small portion of all the changes that have recently come and are coming in the future. We pulled these pieces out because this legislation is either already in effect and we are just simply implementing it directly out of state law, or it's something that will be in effect either January 1 of 2026 and in one case June 30th of 2026, and we want to wrap these into our amendments package. I also have tried to sort these sort of in categories. There are a lot of process changes that we're going to need to implement, including changes around middle housing land divisions. If you recall, middle housing are duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, cottage clusters, and townhouses. We, a couple of years ago, had to allow those in a number of areas. Along with that is this allowance to then further divide the property. And so some of those regulations are changing. There are some additional changes to the process for expedited land divisions that we have to offer to certain housing developers. And then there's actually a new housing application type that we are going to be required to have to offer called an urban housing application, specifically for zone changes, planned unit developments, and variances. That is an interesting land use application because there is no public hearing allowed. It's a very narrow comment window, new timelines, and we cannot hold a hearing. And so that's going to be something we need to figure out how to incorporate that into our rules. There is a requirement that jurisdictions inside the urban growth boundary cannot apply certain design standards for certain residential developments, which as a practical matter really only applies to very large single-family or middle housing developments. There's a couple changes to allow a developer to opt into new regulations if they change after they have submitted a land use application, and we will have to offer that. And then there's a number of very specific uses that we are required to allow now, and again, we're implementing right out of state law, and they range from anything like emergency shelters, which we had talked to you all about in the past, to child care centers in certain commercial industrial areas, to preschools and pre-kindergarten associated with places of worship, and then residential treatment facilities, residential homes, mental and psychiatric hospitals, and crisis stabilization centers, all within urban growth boundaries in a number of different zones and publicly owned lands. And so those would need to be added to our zoning code as a use allowed outright. We are no longer allowed to enforce off-street parking minimums in our urban area, and we're doing that directly out of state law, and we have not actually incorporated that into our zoning code yet. We're proposing to include that in this package as well. And then I'm going to sort of straddle over to the second group of amendments because it sort of straddles legislation, rulemaking, state law, and then, just generally a code audit of our farm and forest zones, our exclusive farm use, timber, and ag forest zones to make sure that we are consistent with state law. There have been a number of changes in state law, including some rulemaking that has codified some common law decisions that have been made, and so we need to add those in. And then finally, to remove references to the state wildfire map that was repealed, which has had added some requirements to replacement dwellings and to accessory dwelling units in rural residential areas in terms of additional fire hardening construction. That map was repealed, and therefore those regulations have gone away. That was a lot. It was a big smattering of different types of amendments. As we go through this process, there will be a lot more detail and a lot more explanation of what exactly we're changing in our code related to all of these items. These items are all mandatory, and so like Jennifer mentioned, we have to implement them, and we feel that it's much better to implement it out of our local code than continue to implement out of state law, just for ease of implementation and, quite frankly, just better customer service.
So the second bucket are amendments that are, other than that first one where, as we said, it kind of straddles the two categories. They're amendments that staff is suggesting. They generally fall into the categories of correcting outright errors. We have a bad citation that we just know we need to fix, or clarification where we know what the provision means, but the average person reading it, including new staff members and applicants, they don't know what it means. So we're really not talking about a policy shift, but a way to just make the code more accessible for folks. We're also looking at potentially some streamlining of various regulations and processes where we feel like it's creating development barriers, but there's really not a significant value to those standards. So it wouldn't be looking at repealing things that we think are really important necessarily, but those things that are just posing obstacles to folks without corresponding value. The one that I want to call out also is this question of docks on the Willamette River. So for those of you who were here in 2023, you may recall that Martha brought an application from a private property owner forward to the board for a comprehensive plan amendment to allow a dock, a private dock, in association with their dwelling. And that amendment was needed because we have what's called a limited use zone on our Willamette River that's been around for decades. It's associated with a statewide planning goal for the Willamette River Greenway that designates two stretches of the Willamette where docks are not permitted. Now, despite the fact that those areas are designated, there are a lot of docks in those stretches of the river because, for the most part, because they were just non-conforming uses. They've been there since before the rules and have been able to be replaced or changed over time. I think in some cases there were errors made over the many years where staff approved some things that probably shouldn't have been, and then there have been a handful of cases where the board over the years has actually changed the map to allow a dock. So we've kind of got a situation now where most of the homes in those stretches already have a dock, but you have a few that don't. And so the board understandably had some frustration that, a property owner would have to go through what really is a pretty burdensome application process to change that. So the request was that we bring that forward for a more holistic look, and so we would propose to do that as part of this. We do, for this one, need to do some research. We need to do a little research with what the state rules require, and we also, for land use, and we also want to look a little bit at what the Department of State Lands does regarding docks, just so we can understand where our regulations may be redundant or conflicting. And this could, I think, be anything from just eliminating this limited use designation to simply deciding the county isn't going to regulate docks at all and just defer to the state. And that is a bigger question. So certainly interested in feedback from the board as to what your thoughts are on that. And we haven't, again, drafted anything at this point, but the suggestion from staff is to include that in this package. And then the third bucket, we've occasionally get, as you can imagine, requests from the public for changes to the code. And so 3 of those have come in that we've sort of teed up for you to consider today. One is also related to the Willamette River Greenway, not docks, but related to the height limit in the Willamette River Greenway. Residential structures have a 35-foot height limit in the Greenway. For the most part, that doesn't pose problems because, for instance, our single-family urban zones have that height limit anyway, so it's really not an additional burden. And most rural residential areas, they're not building homes taller than that anyway. However, there are some high-density residential zone properties. Willamette View and Rosevilla are both zoned that way. And Willamette View has submitted a request to have a change made to the code that would permit them to build a building that is taller than 35 feet, that is residential, within an area of the Greenway. They've deferred to us to figure out exactly how that should be integrated into our code. They've got some ideas, but have said they understand ultimately we should figure out the best way to do it. Staff is supportive of considering that amendment and is recommending accordingly as part of this policy session today. The second one was a request from a cannabis grower in the county who's been pretty active with cannabis regulations in the state and active, I think, in our process here for regulating the use. They are interested in having the code amended to permit cannabis extract processing in the EFU and ag forest zones. Currently, that's prohibited. State law would allow it, but our code prohibits it. And the reasoning behind that, as again, at least Commissioner Savas will probably remember, I think maybe you were the only one here at that time when we did the cannabis regulations, there was some concern about safety because extract processing does use volatile solvents, hydrocarbon solvents, or high pressure processing of using carbon dioxide, I believe, is the other option. So I'm not going to say there's no concerns. What I am going to say is that other types of extract processing are permitted in those zones. You can process, for instance, lavender oil, hemp. It's specifically cannabis that is excluded. The other thing is we have changed our rules. The county code has changed since we adopted these standards, such that we now specify that a building permit is required if you're going to do processing, agricultural processing, in one of these zones. And that was something that we changed, where the state building code doesn't necessarily require that in an ag exempt structure. They'll allow you to use an ag exempt structure. So I think we've got some additional protections in place, but I certainly understand that there may still be some safety concerns, and we would want to do a little more research on that if you're interested in having us pursue that particular amendment for consideration. And finally, the third request that we got from the public was related to roosters. There's a situation, you've got some maps in your packet for today. There's a situation where there are a large number of roosters being kept on a rural residential property, and as I understand it, it's created some neighbor conflict. So the request is that we regulate roosters. What really the effect would be prohibiting roosters on properties zoned RFF5 if the lot is smaller than 5 acres. And as noted in the policy session worksheet, this creates some concerns. It would be prohibiting a use that's currently allowed, so we would need to do individual property owner notification to anybody who was going to have that prohibition applied to their property. As you can imagine, that can increase the level of controversy and the amount of staffing needed to kind of respond to what the concerns are. Secondly, you would end up creating a situation that seems odd, but you would have non-conforming roosters. So state law protects non-conforming uses in counties, and so if you were keeping, let's say, a dozen roosters, and we passed the prohibition, you would continue to be able to have your dozen roosters. I think probably you'd be able to, lose one rooster and replace it. But if you wanted to all of a sudden have 13 roosters, you'd have to file a land use application. So, I am kind of smiling, but the reality is this does pose administrative issues for code enforcement and for planning in terms of trying to figure out what sort of non-conforming rooster use that you have. That said, I am sympathetic to this particular situation. It does seem like it is creating an issue in the neighborhood, and we're always trying to balance those, the property rights with the quality of life for neighbors issue. So staff is not actually recommending that you pursue that amendment. If you were interested in doing that, we would want to think about making it a little more consistent than what's been proposed by the community member, because as they've proposed it, I think we would end up with some kind of unusual differences between different zones and things. So we might want to refine it a bit if you're interested in moving forward with that. So those are the three from the public. There are 4 options that we have identified in the worksheet for you to choose between today. One would be to direct staff to draft amendments consistent with Attachment A, so that's everything, all 13 of the things we've kind of summarized there, and initiate the formal amendment process. The second option is to direct staff to draft amendments consistent with Attachment A, excluding the proposal to regulate roosters in the RFF5 zone, and initiate the formal amendment process. Third option is to direct staff to make board-identified changes to the proposals in Attachment A and initiate the formal amendment process. And the final option is to direct staff to take no further action on this project. Staff's recommendation is option 2, that you direct staff to draft amendments consistent with Attachment A, excluding the proposal to regulate livestock or roosters in the RFF5 zone, and initiate the formal amendment process. And we are happy to answer questions.
That was quick. Ben.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if this is applicable. I believe legislation passed to where restricted covenants, HOAs could not put an additional layer of regulation regarding chickens or types of farming or urban type of farming beyond like what a municipality or a county would already set as the rules. Are you familiar with that?
That state law is
So like,
preventing?
let's say somebody wanted to grow tomatoes in their front yard, but the HOA said no.
Oh.
And the CD said that doesn't violate our rules, right? And sometimes the restrictive covenants or other
Right.
areas would have additional layer of restriction. Kind of the idea around people to self-subsist and farm in the right to grow some of your own food. It also would apply to livestock or chickens. So like in Wilsonville, you can have an ostrich. I didn't know that until we got into this, but you can have an ostrich in Wilsonville. There's restrictions, but you can have some weird animals in Wilsonville. But it kind of was around this idea around people, culturally specific foods, easy access to affordable like proteins, like they can get their own eggs, things like that. Does any of would this impact? I don't know if you're aware of this piece of legislation. Would this impact that specifically, or?
I mean, I'm not familiar with that legislation. I'm familiar with some other legislation that related to middle housing, that related to, or restricted what homeowners associations could do. I'm not familiar with a restriction that says a homeowners association can't regulate. It doesn't mean it's not out there. It's just
Okay.
not. Are you familiar with it? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're restricted from.
I can't remember the bill off the top of my head. I advocated for it, but that you wouldn't have additional restrictive covenants on what an already city ordinance or
Sure.
county had already put in place
Right.
beyond that.
Right. We're restricted from, and we have to allow farm use in the exclusive farm use zone. State law requires, the county can't prevent that. But like in our rural residential zones, we have more latitude in terms of what we allow and don't allow.
So on the chicken and rooster thing, why 5 acres? Because I don't know anybody that has 13 roosters. That seems like a lot of, bird fighting. I don't know who would have, I don't know, but I get your point. But does that at all, but I get a little bit like, I want people to be able to have some ability to have their own food, and to subsist. That just seems like a very large amount of acreage. Why does it need to? Why can't you have a rooster if you have an acre? Like, why 5 acres? Is that
Right.
excessive?
I don't know why the community member has proposed that. The county code allows it in any of our rural residential zones above 2 acres for sure, and some of our 2-acre zones allow it as well. And it doesn't matter what size your lot is in that case, it's just based upon what the zoning is. So
The zoning, okay.
we allow that. The property owner in this case, I'm assuming I think she was looking at the idea that if it was less than 5 acres, it's sort of a non-conforming lot in the RFF5 zone. That's not entirely true because of the way lot sizing works in RFF5, so I wouldn't necessarily set the line there, but.
I just don't understand why we have it. Is it even a needed new regulation, or are we just putting a new regulation? Like, I don't understand.
Staff isn't proposing that you do this. Right?
Okay.
It's just a community member request.
community
because
suggestion.
they're concerned.
They're concerned, okay.
About this particular use in their area. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, first question, and I'm not referring to the lifespan of a rooster, but roosters, if we did change anything, if we did, would they be grandfathered in?
I mean, I think yes, and I guess it's an interesting legal question. I think, would not interpret that a specific rooster is becoming a non-conforming use. I think we would probably, at the staff level, I would assume, if you have 12 roosters, you can continue to have 12 roosters. If one dies, you can replace it. I mean, we don't normally tie non-conforming uses to something quite that specific. It'd be like if you had a non-conforming daycare center for 20 children, you can continue to have 20 children. It doesn't have to be the same 20 children. But I do not know if there is some case law out there that would say as the roosters passed away, we could sort of zone them, to the point where the use wouldn't be allowed anymore.
Okay. The other question I had was related to the processing for the cannabis.
Yes.
And as I recall, there was, and I haven't followed it in a long time, it's not my wheelhouse, but I think the concern was a lot of the braking technology at the time, if you will, with some of the means in which those oils were processed, and the concern that it was perhaps worse so than established things like lavender and so on. So I'm a little bit, without having that without doing some homework on my end, I would be reluctant to have you all work on that until we had a better grasp of that or a conversation about whether or not we want to allow that. I'm just, with all the fire hazards and everything else, I think that was an issue. And then that was way before we had the big fire in 2020, right, September? So
Correct.
I would just say that that might be something that is probably more sensitive today than it was at the time. So I'm reluctant to, unless someone can make a great argument why we should change our minds, if you will.
Yeah, I think the community member is essentially making a business argument, that's, I think, at its core. We're not having an issue in terms of administering, there's not a code administration issue, and state law does not require us to allow the processing for cannabis. We are required to allow it for the other agricultural products, so that is kind of a distinction. But I would want to do more research as well.
Yeah, and added to that research, that our means of accommodating that processing was in the urban area, right, in an industrial type property. I remember the conversation. So I guess, part of that research, if we did pursue it, is how much processing is now done in the urban area or in a commercial industrial zone
Right.
as we intended it to be. If it's not being used at all, then to me, it seems that that's still an option, right, for a business argument.
Sure, right, yeah, and we would have records on the number of processing applications we've approved and all of those things, and certainly there is some going on in industrial zones, I know, just anecdotally that it is, but, yeah.
And then the third one is, just so I thoroughly understand, so on the Willamette View, the Greenway, the Willamette Greenway issue, the height, so we're saying that the height is currently similar for housing, right? So this would not be anything that would be in the view shed, other than a new building that would be multifamily versus single family, right? That's really the difference.
Right, so currently the 35-foot height limit applies to any residential structure or residential accessory structure anywhere in the Greenway. So rural, urban, single-family, multifamily. We don't have much zoning in the Greenway that isn't single-family or EFU or, so this is unusual, this pocket of high-density residential. Whether it would be visible. So the Greenway is really focused, I think it's fair to say, yes, there's other reasons why they want vegetative buffers along the river, but part of it is scenic quality from the river. So it's sort of, what are you seeing when you're actually recreating on the river? And I think that's part of the reason that the height limit exists, is because of that visual, impact potentially. That the person or the company requesting this amendment has submitted some photos, which you do have, I think, in your packet, that show kind of views from the river at their property, and that it is fairly treed and all of that. But I don't think we can say there will be no, I think part of the building could certainly be visible from the river, at least at certain angles, but there is quite a tree, a buffer of pretty mature trees there.
Yeah, well, I recently here, 2 weeks ago, I received a call. I didn't know about this packet. I received a call from someone who owns property on the Willamette River, Oak Grove area specifically, by the way, who is concerned about a parcel that was purchased for the intent of building high-density residential, now allowed through HB 2001, I believe, right? That's right legislation.
Middle housing is allowed, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
middle housing.
Yep.
So I would, though I understand you're saying from the view from the river, I think there's going to be, and maybe there's no control over this, right? Is that, what if we start doing that same kind of development and that impedes the view from people that are living on or near the river?
Oh, I see what you mean, more of a blocking the view of the
Right,
river for that, right.
It blocks the
right,
view shed of what currently,
Sure.
people can look upriver, downriver, they got a pretty good view.
Sure.
Now you put up a big wide building, wider, not necessarily tall, as it is wide, that it becomes a greater obstruction than would be otherwise.
Sure. So as envisioned, this amendment would only apply in the high-density residential zone. So single-family zoning that now qualifies isn't really a single-family, right? It qualifies for the middle housing. That still has the 35-foot height limit. And at the moment, we can continue to apply that. I'm looking at
Yes.
Martha, right? They haven't, I mean, there's always the possibility the state will change our height allowances as well, but so far, we can still have that. So the amendment would have fairly limited applicability because there isn't a lot of high-density residential. Now conceivably, in the future, could there be a zone change for, I mean, we can't, right? Somebody else might rezone to HDR at some point, but right now, it would be pretty limited to the Willamette. I believe it's just Willamette View and Rosevilla. And certainly, we can provide you with mapping of that if you're interested in having us pursue
So
this.
what would be, back to the, stepping away from the high-density residential to the multifamily residential allowed under 2001? What's the maximum, either unit, total units and/or physical size? Is there any kind of a, I mean, what's the difference? At the end of the day, what's the
Right,
difference?
right. Maybe you want to try to, I can probably do it, but how about, I've been talking a lot, you go for
No,
it.
that's fine. So the difference is the total allowed density. In high-density residential, it is multifamily housing, apartments, condos, at a higher, theoretically, a higher density. What the middle housing is either a triplex, a fourplex, or a cottage cluster, or townhouses. There is a cap to the density. On a single lot, you could do 4 of those dwellings. It's not multifamily housing. At this point, it's not considered multifamily housing, which by definition has 5 or more units. And so it can physically start to look the same, but it's intended to be a smaller scale because you only get a certain number of units on the property. The one exception, I guess, would be cottage clusters. There is no actual maximum to the number of cottages you can put on the property. They have to fit. They have to meet the setback standards. There's open space requirements. I mean, it's geometry, basically, what you can fit on the property. But in all of those cases, there is a height limit of 35 feet. And currently, we have a maximum lot coverage of 50%. You cannot cover more than half your lot with structures. And so there are some limitations, but as changes continue to be made by the state, and we have to allow more and more, those lines are becoming a little more fuzzy between sort of your traditional multifamily housing and middle housing.
Okay, thank you for that. You probably already know this, but there's just a lot of anxiety out there as a result of HB 2001. So I'm not an expert like you all are on what can be allowed or not allowed, so I always refer them back to you all. Chair, back to you.
All right, thank you. I actually do have a number of questions. And so I'm kind of going back, and I'm just asking for some education on my behalf and probably the public's. Just a lot of these are being pushed down from the state. Is that correct?
That's
Right.
correct.
So I just want to be clear on some of these, because this is a complaint I hear quite often, and I'd like you to talk to us about this. It has to do with off-street parking. And one of the things I hear a lot is somebody builds could be a single family with no parking, or one garage, no available parking for guests. Most often 2 people live in a house, most often 2 people sometimes have 2 cars. And that is, I get concerns about that as, who approved this, right? And so I'm just trying to understand that issue, and maybe you could talk on that for us a little bit.
I'll start, and then potentially, if you want more detail, we'll have the expert chime in here. So this requirement or change at the state level, mandate, is a little bit older than some of these other ones that are on the list for today. It's already in effect. It was a package of rules called the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities Rules. And one of the things that it required was a really significant shift in thinking related to off-street parking requirements inside the urban growth boundary. So we are, as of July 1st of 2023, not allowed to require off-street parking inside the urban growth boundary for anything, for a school, for a church, for a mall, for a house, nothing. There were some options provided in those rules. As I recall, 3 different pathways that could have been selected. We did speak with the board back then about potentially pursuing an option other than the repeal, essentially, of the parking requirements. But there were a lot of concerns with those other 2 pathways. They were not necessarily feasible. They would have required the county to undertake really new programs. For instance, metered parking, permit parking, things we don't currently do. And so at that point, the board did not choose, for really, I think, understandably, to pursue those options. And so by not changing our code, then the default is there are no off-street parking requirements in the urban area now that we're able to apply. But they're all still on the books in our code, and so it's confusing. It's confusing for new staff, it's confusing for the public. What did I get wrong?
You didn't get anything wrong. I think I got the date wrong. I think it was 2024. but
2024,
don't
okay.
quote me on that.
That's fair.
Okay. That's helpful. Another question I have is on Section 2, other amendments proposed, has to do with farm and forest zone lands. You have listed here ag tourism event standards. Could you talk about that and what that kind of means?
Right. So the state did some rulemaking. The Department of Land Conservation and Development did some rulemaking, which took effect in January. And the focus of most of it was to add specific administrative rules that basically mirror court decisions that had previously been made about what certain state rules already meant. So it's a little confusing, but the idea would have been, the court has already said that if you're going to have an agritourism event on an EFU zoned property, this vague standard that they've got in the law really means this, this, and this. And so now they've taken those things that the court said and they've actually put them into the law so that planners don't have to try to track down all these old court cases to find all those interpretations, basically. So they did that with a number of different uses that were already allowed in farm zones, and it just kind of, I guess, gives a little bit more meat to what the standards mean. It's supposed to help the applicants and staff. Sometimes it does, I guess. Other times, maybe not.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, do you see a positive or negative impact? We have a lot of farms that have that,
Right.
utilize it for that very thing.
Sure. Oh, for sure. I think this is probably not a net change from a substantive standpoint. I think that there may be some legislation potentially coming that will actually change the rules. But for right now, I think this is really just putting in one place what we were all supposed to know already, but maybe didn't.
Okay. Sorry, just a couple more questions. Under 9, amendments to reduce development barriers. Could you just talk about that a little bit? I'm
Sure.
trying to understand how that can help things.
Yeah, absolutely. So this would be a package of things that our staff and applicants have really struggled with, where it feels like if we could just write the standard a little bit, so it's a little more straightforward, so it's a little more flexible, it would save applicants time and money, and it would save the county time and money. And I do not characterize these as things that are like major policy decisions. It's things like, our setback standards, so how far you have to build your house from the road or from the neighbor, are all pretty much drafted as though every lot is a rectangle with frontage on a public road. They don't necessarily work really well with all the sort of odd circumstances that happen, not just in the urban area, but in the rural area with unusual access points, private road, So the idea is to really try to simplify those standards so that staff can give consistent answers and the public can understand it. So that's one example. There's some inconsistencies in the way we determine if you need to have 2 acres. For instance, that's the minimum lot size for a particular use or a particular zone. Some places we calculate it one way, you get to count out to the center of the road. Some places you don't. Well, that doesn't make any sense. We should be calculating the size the same way every time. So it's those kinds of things. I don't think there's anything here that's likely to be, as I said, a significant policy issue, but we hope it will make the code work better for everybody.
Okay. And my last question, which I've had a little experience on this, is that, and would like you to talk about it, is limiting county regulations applicable to docks on the Willamette. It does become very confusing because just for example, you can be in the city of Wilsonville, and they'll have a huge dock that was approved by the city, and you're just within a short distance away, and then there's a lot more tight restrictions. And so from what I kind of interpret this is your goal is to limit the county's involvement in this, is what I understand. Is that right?
Yes, potentially. And I think the clear example are these limited use. So the river is divided into these, frankly, we don't know quite why whoever they were, 40 years ago, decided to do it a certain way. But there are certain stretches of the river where you can't have a dock at all. But there are all kinds of docks out there for a variety of reasons, mostly because they predated the rules. So the board had expressed interest a couple years ago in considering just removing that restriction so that anybody could have their one dock for their house or whatnot. So that's kind of the biggest part of this, but I think there is an opportunity to look more broadly at our rules. We currently we cap the size of docks, which may be appropriate, but part of the river has one size, part of the river has a different size. Part of the river can't have a boathouse, part of the river can have a boathouse. Why is it like that? It's not clear from at least what we've found so far why it's like that. So those are the biggest rules that we apply. There's a requirement that the docks be earth tones, which probably does make some sense. Maybe they shouldn't be pink and purple and whatnot. But we also kind of want to understand, because we don't necessarily know what the rules are at the state level. So the Department of State Lands, leases the water to the dock owner, and there are rules associated with that. And so we would want to do a little research on this one and try to understand if our rules are adding value or really just adding a layer that doesn't need to be there.
Okay. Diana Hill.
Back to the roosters.
Yes.
So this regulation doesn't fix the existing problem
Correct.
at all, right?
Correct.
Especially if it's grandfathered in, it's kind of pointless to do it at this point.
It potentially prevents them from acquiring even more roosters, but it would not get rid of the ones that are there. That is correct.
And it was at a previous meeting that I believe you said something along the lines of people have the right to enjoy
The
peaceful
peaceful enjoyment of their property.
enjoyment of their property. It sounds more like a mediation kind of thing or something. I don't know. I have a rooster on the backside of my property. There's only one that I know of, and he's busy all day long and all night long. But I can't imagine there are 13 of them would be, wow, that would be a lot. So I understand, and I'm sympathetic too, but I don't think this fixes the problem. So then the cannabis extracting processing, I'd love to know some data on number of issues. Like, I just think in Bend, they just had an explosion recently from this type of operation that shook my son's house, who was 2 miles away, and thankfully nobody was hurt or killed. But I'd like to know about issues that have come up from that, because it is very highly volatile, and I've heard that, and I remember during the whole cannabis, issues back in 2014, when I served on another council, that it was highly contentious. So some data to help us
Yes,
with that would help
absolutely.
me. And then I want to go back to number 9 as well. And I will just reiterate, and I think I've said it, I don't know how many times. Anytime we reduce development barriers, I think we're doing a really good thing. So I think that's probably one of the biggest complaints we get up here from constituents is the length of time it takes to get a permit, the hoops people have to jump through. Anytime we can streamline, let's do it. Let's help our customers do what they want to do, which is they want to build things and make things easier. I think it's a great process to go through. So, and I asked that question because I didn't know if I should exclude, if we were to make a motion on one of these, if we should exclude a couple of these or just one, or anyway, those were my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Savas.
So kind of building on what Commissioner Helm just stated, what's the procedure here? I mean, let's say we're reluctant to move something forward, but, and we don't want to create a lot of staff work and then kind of, throw it all out the window months from now. What's the procedure if we say yes to everything today, hypothetically? What happens?
Sure. So the process for the actual, we obviously have to, this is just conceptual right now. We have to do the nuts and bolts of actually drafting these amendments, which will take some time. There's some that will require a little bit of research. We have some public notification requirements, and then the first stop is a hearing at the, we would do a study session with the Planning Commission. We have not spoken to them yet. And then hearings before the Planning Commission and the board. So you can really dictate how you want this to work. You could initiate any combination of what we've given you here, meaning that we would start working on it. You could say, and by the way, we want you to come back and do this again before you schedule hearings. And if you want to do that, we could do that. You might want to bifurcate. I mean, if you feel comfortable with 90% of it, we could move on that. And if what you tell me is we're not ready to move forward on the cannabis processing, for example, we can do that at a future point. That would be fine as well. I think it just depends what the, sort of your level of interest is in having all of these things move forward as quickly as possible. I mean, I guess I would say some of this stuff we really would like to get done sooner rather than later. So if you feel like, for instance, the cannabis and the roosters are kind of a no-go at this point, I would maybe recommend that you just move ahead with the rest, and then if you want us to do some research on the cannabis piece, we can bring that back, and you can decide to add it to another package in the future if you want.
Okay, yeah, because the way it's written in the packet, it says goes to Planning Commission in June of next year, right? And if there's a point in between that we can, examine what you've done thus far,
Right.
and rehash it or discuss it based on whatever comes up, I'd like that.
Sure.
I don't know if we need to incorporate that in the motion or not, but I just want to have another opportunity to chime in before yourselves and the Planning Commission go to work on it.
Right, and we're really trying to get this, we're hoping to get this done by the end of June, maybe not in effect, but through hearings. So I was envisioning that we would probably have a hearing at the Planning Commission by early May, kind of at the latest, but that's still time if you want another policy session. But I think we would probably be needing to do that maybe in March if we were going to hit a notice deadline then for a May hearing at the Planning Commission.
Right. The other question I want to go back to number 9 and specifically the first bullet. So expand on various, it's kind of vague.
Yes.
Various setback standards. Setbacks have created a lot of havoc for a number of us, and sometimes I wonder, as other people do, but yet we hold people and we often have to say, no, you can't do this,
Right.
you can't do that.
Right. So I could have one of my team come down and give you the PowerPoint that he gave to one of our staff meetings. It's really hard for me to overstate how confusing these provisions are, which is partly why you get a bullet that says various setback standards, because it could be like a 2-hour policy session just explaining what all the weird setback situations are. But it really is things like, it's a flag lot, where's the front? It's got 4 access points. Which one's the front lot line? And in a lot of cases, do we care? So that it really is mostly about it's not about reducing the setbacks per se. It's about deciding which lot line's which. And the biggest thing is figuring out where the front property line is, which you'd think would be super easy. So, but it isn't. So, I don't think, we're not looking at really changing the distances. It would be more a matter of clarifying how you figure out, because you got to find the front first, and then that dictates where the back is and the sides are, and that dictates all the distances from your neighbors. So that's really what it's about. And we got all kinds of great drawings. I'd be happy to show you all the weird ones.
Yeah, well, maybe that's probably what's in order. I find it sometimes striking that the setback is related to height of the structure. Let's just say it's an accessory structure, that the height, if it's X, you have a greater setback. And I can see maybe it's more fuel or fire, maybe that's what it is. But what is puzzling to me is sometimes the rear setback is different than the side setback. And
Correct.
from that standpoint, why is it 3 feet here and it's 12 feet on the back? So there's
Yeah.
no
Historical
quantifiable
anomalies.
difference.
Yeah. I mean, if the board's interested in having a more comprehensive look at setbacks, we can do that. This was intended, this is on the list intending to kind of deal with these oddly shaped, where's the access, where's the front sort of issues, more than really looking at the actual distances or how we, but we could look at any of that. And you're right, in some zones, height drives the setback. But it's not consistent. It's not consistent across zones, and it's not consistent in terms of, it's different for accessory structures than it is for, there's a lot of
Yeah, and
oddities.
I'm aware that some of that is state, established by state. Some
Mostly, well, some just in our timber zone, but otherwise, it's all, these are local decisions that have been made over 60 years. That's what you're talking about, 60 years of history.
Thought we just had something that came up in an executive session. I can't talk about what it was, but you remember that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. 288 feet.
And the staff was telling us it was a state rule, not a local rule.
Yeah.
There are some prescribed setbacks for certain middle housing types. I don't know what you're talking about, but absent that, I'm not aware of any, none are coming to mind.
Okay.
Doesn't mean there's not one.
That we're not
one
forgetting
off
something.
out there that we
Yeah.
are not remembering of.
Right.
Okay, so I didn't take score as to who supported what. I'm happy to make a motion, but.
Can I ask one more question?
Oh, by all means.
Is that all right? On the same subject, if we revisit this various setback standards, I just want to make sure we're leaving flexibility in it and we're not locking things in, right? Because like you said, there's so many various scenarios that you guys see every single day, and if you have something that says, nope, this is prescribed, this is the only way it can be, I
Right.
think even flag lots can be completely different, right? I mean, there's various shapes, there's various sizes, who determines what the front, the back is, but I just want to make sure when you do that, that there flexibility is still built into that.
So I like that idea. I will tell you that for housing, we are required to have clear and objective standards. That's a whole other conversation for us to have at a different time, associated with some other code amendments that will be coming. But we do have to have some setback standards where it's easy to figure out what they are, and they apply rigidly and uniformly, kind of in a certain way all the time. Then you can have an alternative pathway, which is what you're talking about, something to provide flexibility where a developer can opt into that.
Okay.
It's a
Yes.
variance,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Kind of like
Kind of
that.
a
but
variance?
Yes,
Okay,
something with
okay.
some discretion, yes.
All right, very good, thank you. And then I can take a stab at it because I actually wrote it out, so.
Okay. I did have one question for Craig, and actually then staff, based on your response. So when you were talking, Craig, about the off-street parking,
Yes.
so it's a technical question, but what I hear often, I know Martha's heard this before, when parking requirements were removed for high-density development, they were basically removed or limited, and so it really forced a lot of on-street parking, and then hence, if the off-street parking is eliminated, okay, does that really mean that the street can be narrower? Because, is that the benefit of not having, for a developer, is that the benefit of removing off-street parking, that you have a narrower road? They still have to build a curb, they still need to build a sidewalk, right? They still need to build all that stuff typically, so what's the real net difference if it's not required, when they still have to require a curb and a sidewalk?
So a couple of things. The removal of the off-street parking mandates doesn't affect what they are required to do in the right-of-way, the improvements that they would have to do. And just because we cannot require the off-street parking doesn't mean that we can't allow it. So if a developer comes in and says, I do want to build a parking lot here, we say, great, you can build the parking lot. It needs to meet these, standards and landscaping, and there's a lot of requirements. The benefit is, on some sites, if a development doesn't have to meet a specific parking ratio, it could potentially develop more of the property, more housing units, things like that, and there is a cost associated with providing parking. And the trade-off is the cost for parking versus cost for more units, which you get a bigger benefit from.
So Craig, just to clarify what you heard, I can tell you what the complaints I hear.
Yeah, I think Ben and I've seen a little bit of this out in Wilsonville, and it was one particular area kind of where they didn't really allow for parking and pushed everybody to the street, and then they turned it into a public safety issue of go fix this, right? And it's not fixable because they just didn't have enough off-street parking for the structures, multiple families living, and it just really turned into a complete mess. And really, I mean, people parking everywhere just to find a spot. So that's why I was concerned about that, and some other developers that that really have very limited parking on the property itself. And so just concerned about that domino effect that might end up on the street, pushing more complicated issues having to do with traffic flow and that stuff. So I think that's really what I was seeing, not necessarily in the unincorporated area, but I've seen it in some of the cities that have had an impact.
Yeah, well, with the previous commission, and you probably haven't heard me say this before, but one of the other things that's been raised is I would like to buy an electric car. I live in an apartment, but there's not enough parking, and there's no place to plug in, so therefore I can't plug in if I park on the street, right? So there's a state mandated thing like this, and there's a state mandated thing that we need to electrify and have charging stations, but yet a parking space is not simply a parking space, it's also an opportunity for a charging station. And so their development, not too far from where I live, I did learn, I was informed that, yeah, they put the electrical infrastructure in the ground, they just didn't run the wire, and they didn't run so it's in parts of this particular development, but the street is lined constantly, day and night, with cars, and it's a battle for people getting in and out, to park, because there's inadequate parking. Nothing we can do about it, but I just thought it's two state mandates that kind of conflict with really trying to electrify, if you will.
Thanks, Paul. All right, I think Diana Hill might have
I'll take a stab at this.
I might have to read your motion.
That's all right, I'll hand it to you. I move we direct staff to draft amendments consistent with Attachment A, excluding the proposal to regulate roosters in the RRFF 5 zone and also exclude the cannabis extract processing in EFU, ag, and farmland, and initiate the formal amendment process.
Is there a second?
So I excluded two things.
Okay, I'm scanning here everything we talked about, but all the 10 or so.
Oh, wait.
Okay, I'll second it.
All right, let me see which, again, I've got pretty close to what
My
you
chicken
have.
scratch right there.
So it's been moved by Diane Helm to direct staff to draft an amendment consistent with Attachment A, excluding the proposed to regulate roosters in the RRFF-5 zone, the cannabis extract processing in the EFU and Ag F, and to initiate a formal amendment process. It's been seconded by Commissioner Savas. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner West.
So you brought up the parking issue. Is there anything on the local level, or are we totally bound by state statute that kind of wants to drive people out of their cars, less lanes, urbanize everywhere, stack them and pack them and you'll be happy with it type of mentality with these policies brought onto our community? Is there any type of work we should be looking at the local level to try to offset, or are we totally bound by these state parking policies that are quite prescriptive and handcuffing and sometimes feel nonsensical? So I don't know, is that, we didn't really mention anything about that, but I don't know if there's anything we could be looking at, or are we just, it's mandated, it's mandatory. Like, is there anything creative at the local level where are being stripped of our local authority to build our own communities the way we see fit?
So, well, we're going to split this. So let me just answer the part of your question, which is, yes, we're bound by the rules. The question is whether, there are 3 pathways that are available, and I mean, it's been a while since we've read all the specifics, but Martha might remember sort of what the 3 pathways were, one of which is this eliminating all parking mandates.
Right. That is the easiest pathway, is to eliminate all off-street parking mandates in the urban area. The other 2 pathways involve things like creating new programs. Like Jennifer mentioned, you need to, in one of them, you would need to create a specific paid parking zone. There's requirements in some cases for bundling parking, which I don't totally understand. I'd have to read about it again. In all cases, there still will be areas in the urban area where there are no parking mandates. And so what it becomes is you have these specific areas, so some people have no parking mandates and others may have other sort of lesser parking mandates and other potentially more complicated programs going on. And it seems like, when I read it, it seems like it's something that can work in, like, in Oregon City that has a downtown with metered parking already. It's a system that's kind of set up for something like that. Our urban unincorporated area is extremely large and has lots of variety of areas and types of uses. And we are not aware of any particular area where there is such a parking problem that we'd have to figure out where to set up some sort of permitting or paid parking, and then, of course, establish that entire program. And so the only option that doesn't require us to do those types of things is to remove all parking mandates. And because we did nothing, the state said that you cannot enforce your parking mandates anymore, and so we have to implement it straight out of state law, and that's what we've been doing. So it's a long way of saying, sure, there might be options, but like a lot of the options that are given to us in these state mandates, as a practical matter, they are complicated and difficult. I question the equitability of some of these things, and so we try to make things more flexible and easy for our customers, and it seems a little bit counter to that. But that said, we could talk to you more about those.
I mean, who would have thought that your answer for parking, it's not your fault, would be so complicated and unnecessarily complicated on something as trivial as appropriately parking your car. And then, like, we wonder why Oregon's so unaffordable, and, like, this impacts livability, and you're just hassling good people's lives at this point from being able just to, and I don't know, I would like us to, I'll defer to Commissioner Savas. I just am, I'm a little bit perplexed that we just seem to not have we probably have a local solution for this, but being prohibitive from doing what's in the best interest of I think, the county.
So I think Diana Helm, was up first, Diana.
So, yeah, and I don't disagree with you. It is very complicated, and maybe there is a legislative fix to this. I think oftentimes laws go into place, and the unintended consequences people don't understand, and maybe we could work with PGA or someone to see, or our local reps to find out if there's a fix that is our fix, right?
Yeah.
That responds to our community, and I'm not opposed to looking into that either.
I think it's intentional, though.
I agree
We do need a
that
fix,
it's
but-
intentional, but until you push back and say, we understand what you're trying to do, but it does not work for our community. We're a huge county. We're a lot of rural, and cities have their own regulations, but it doesn't work everywhere. So I'm all about pushing back if we need to, but I think that should be something we work on after they can get started. And I think what they're trying to do with the taking away everything is just trying to make it simpler right now, right? Isn't that's what I'm gathering, is just trying to simplify it at this level until we find a different fix.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I just want to add, taking a lot of heat from people complaining, like what you heard, Greg, is what I was getting at. I've taken a lot of heat for allowing that to happen. I said, well, it's state law. And also take heat from the people that think we ought to do it. Trust us, there'll be transit, we'll have transit out there. People can take transit, they'll just get rid of their car, and here we are, and we never got the transit.
Never get transit, not getting
And
transit.
now they're even cutting that back, even more so. So it's like the left foot doesn't know what the right foot's doing, so all of these presumptions that all these things will take place, electrification, transit, all these things, less reliance on cars, and it doesn't materialize, other than the bad outcomes that, Craig, you hear from, I hear from, frustrating.
Just 1 second, Dan, I'm just calling you. I think that what I kind of hear constantly from this board, and maybe this is for another conversation, is but to have you come back and help us understand how we can reduce any kind of barrier and make things, first of all, easier for you in the process and for the consumer. So I think that's our ultimate goal. We want to make sure that we're making things as easy as possible, quickly, and also that I don't think everybody, myself was included, how complicated this little issue is. So I can really appreciate, but I really think I come back to looking at the people that have been doing this, have the best ideas as to how we can hopefully streamline the system and make it better for all. So, Dan, I saw you.
I have PTSD from this conversation. It was 2 years ago that we had, 3 years ago? 3 years ago. 2 years ago? However many years ago.
2, I think.
We talked all through all this, and I'm sorry, we don't like it. It's a state mandate. It's difficult to get an out that really works and fundamentally. A lot of it could be staying up a parking program. We don't have the time, interest, or money. We may have the interest, but it's like, where do we do it? How do we do it? I mean, it's difficult.
Right.
And it's frustrating, the fact that we are being told by a certain entity to do it this way. And I appreciate all that. But it's all the dialogue that you're having right now. We went through all of that discussion back when that climate-friendly diet discussion was moving on. And I want to make sure we're clear, this is not a discussion that we made independently to say we are doing this. It was a discussion the board made to kind of, we're going to stand down from this and we're going to let the state rules kind of apply. And that's where we got to the no parking standards are there. So we're always willing to have a discussion the board is interested in, but it's a very difficult one to have and it's a very frustrating one. And we can agree to all that, so.
Thanks for that bad news.
No, thank you. So,
It's okay.
so we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Any more discussion?
So, Craig, when you said make it easier for the consumer, I would say that I think that's what you often hear from either consumer or neighbors, residents, right?
Right.
Versus the developer. You didn't say developer. So this is.
Well, yeah, I said kind of what I consider the user, the developer that works with you.
So it's just want to make sure
Yeah,
I
yeah,
understood
yeah.
what you were saying, because.
Yeah, whoever comes in we want to make this streamline the process for the developer that comes in, and which also is a consumer.
Yeah, at the end of the day, our customer is a person who lives in the county. When it's all said and done, it's developed, it's built, and when the customer says, gee, I can't, I want to buy an electric car, but I can't plug it in anywhere because there's no parking on the facility that I live in or a charging station for me to park. So, that's, I think at the end of the day, we have to realize that it's our resident that we need to serve. When the dust settles and development's happening, it's the resident.
Right.
I want to make that
Right,
clarification.
and I guess my belief is this, is the more you streamline it for the developer, the cost is down to the consumer at the front lines, because the more complicated we make things, having to have more engineers and designers and developers involved, that it does get expensive. And I think that's the struggle that we're evolving to try and bring housing down, the cost of housing, and that's, I've heard all of you talk about really anything we can do to help remove barriers, and I think that's what it's tried for all, so.
Andrew has this.
Yes, sir, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to check that your clerk transcribed verbatim Commissioner Helm's custom language, so if I could just check the motion on the
thank
table's
you.
language with her and with you, Chair. I currently have, seconded by Commissioner Savas, I move we direct staff to draft amendments consistent with Attachment A, excluding the proposals to regulate roosters in the RRFF 5 zone end the cannabis extract processing in EFU and Ag-F, and initiate the formal amendment process.
That's correct.
Thank you, Chair.
Very good, thank you, Andrew. So with that, motion on the floor. here. Yes, sir.
Would that, it would leave the number 12 cannabis extract processing in EFU and AGF, that would leave it as existing currently, right, for now? Is that
Yes.
right?
Correct.
And then,
Yes.
okay, and then we would also be leaving the rooster as is for now?
Correct.
Everything else we're good with to move forward, right? Am I understanding?
Yeah.
Clarifying?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's it. Just want to clarify.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm still smiling over the rooster.
I don't know who has 13 of those things,
I
but.
don't know.
Might be more than
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
5
can't believe I'm talking about a rooster up here. That's
That could
killing
be
me.
mean,
Killing me. So
Loud
with
and mean.
that,
but pretty.
I will call for a poll.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
Wow, we got past the rooster. Okay, let's move on here. So, next, zoning development ordinance comprehensive plan, and I've
Can I
got
have my
some.
thing back then?
Oh, did I take yours? Sorry. No, this is yours.
We will bring this back at a policy session before we begin the hearing process, as you directed as well, Dan, so.
Okay.
Page 13 of your script.
Yes,
Thank you.
so I will now recess as the Board of Commissioners, convene as the Service District Number 5 Board of Directors. Gary Schmidt.
Thank you. You're sitting as the Service District Street Lighting District. This is Rules and Regulation Amendments for the Clackamas County Service District Number 5. Presenting Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, and Wendy Coriel, Service District Specialist. Go ahead.
Minimize burdens. Here we go. So we're here to talk about street lighting. We are proposing revisions to basically those rules and regulations. It's been about 30 years, in all honesty, since someone's taken a really in-depth look at that code and those requirements. I want to just highlight some of the changes at a very general level, but some of the changes proposed. One, updating roles and definitions to reflect current practices and organizational structure. Separate and define the nuances in processes for different lighting approval/installation methods. For those of you who haven't been through a lot of lighting district issues, they can either be provided through development, through citizen petition, or through capital improvement projects and board resolution. Updating required design and installation standards for the new lighting installation available. Defining existing practices regarding the installation of shields. We have shields that are authorized to be used to block lighting in certain areas that impact residential occupancy. Moving adoptions of the rate schedule to a resolution to meet with current practice, which is what we're doing through our budget process. And updating the process on how the district invoices users and reflects current practices and procedures that we have currently in place. I want to highlight something that's in that almost last paragraph there. We have a lot of conflicting components associated with street lighting, and those components are found not only in the zoning development ordinance. I love to hear how interested you are in this planning and zoning development stuff. It's great. We'll talk to you all day about it. But we have conflicts in the zoning and development ordinance and our engineering standards. And essentially, we're working proactively with those two entities to kind of strip those elements out and make it a reference to the rules and regulations of the district to make it more streamlined and remove conflicting languages out there. There is a pretty lengthy packet of the current rules and regulations, and then there is that are attached to your materials, and there's also proposed revisions. We have a number of options for you to consider. Approval of those rules and regulations as presented for adoption at a future business meeting. Approve proposed rules and regulations as amended, if you wish to amend them during a discussion today. During this policy session for adoption at a future business meeting. Provide direction regarding the proposed rules and regulations. We'd come back to you and talk through those with you. Or last but not least, take no action at this particular time. Well, that's about all we have for right now. We'd be happy to answer the questions you might have.
Questions? Seeing none, directors, is there a motion?
I move we direct staff to schedule the first public hearing on the ordinance as proposed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Director Helm has moved to direct staff to schedule the first public hearing on the ordinance as proposed. Director West has seconded that. Any further discussion? Seeing,
Just one question.
yes, go ahead.
There's been a lot of technical changes in lighting over the years, right? With all the LEDs, and just why has it been 30 years?
It's a really good question.
So 30 years
Wait
seems
to hear
like-
the next topic, which is
Oh.
20. So we're asking, one of the
I mean,
one of
I
the
mean,
issues
has it
we
been
have, or
put
one
on
of
the
the
back
objectives
burner or
we have in our
something?
department is to make sure that all of our programs have these kind of, at least long-range plans. What are your plans? What is the guiding document on what you're trying to achieve? I think street lighting has been, It's been a progress, and there's been improvements in development and efficiencies and effectiveness around street lighting. The effort that you see right now isn't necessarily associated with those changes in going to like LED versus high pressure sodium. It's more around the fact of, let's just take a second and really sit down and read what our code is telling the people that are out there trying to implement it, and to remove the barriers.
Right.
You have a objective within your strategic plan is to remove development of barriers and make things more efficient.
Right.
And so we thought the time was right to really sit down and take a look at it. And this is a document that has not been touched for so long that needed to be touched, and we took up the task and did it. So
I love it. Good.
Great. All right. So I think we're at a point for the clerk to call the poll, please.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. I will now adjourn as the Service District Number 5 Board of Directors and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. Gary?
Next, Clackamas County Parks System Plan Update. Transportation and Development will present as well. Dan Johnson, the Director, and Sarah Ekman, Assistant Director. Go ahead, please.
thank you so much. Last one was 30, this one's 20. We are here to talk to you, and you've actually already approved the contract about the development of a Clackamas County Parks Plan update, a development plan, a system plan. I want to make sure, especially not necessarily for your benefit because you're very aware of this, but for the public maybe listening, this is not North Clackamas Parks and Rec District that is specific to the urban area of Clackamas County. These are our rural parks. And it started with a question that I got from one of you. We won't mention the question, but the question was about some interest about park or park possibilities. So I went down and I asked our parks folks, I'm like, hey, where's our guiding document? Where's our plan? Well, we have one, but it's 20 years old. And that was a point in time to say, okay, time out. We need to kind of do a deeper dive into what parks and what services we're looking to provide the citizens of Clackamas County rural parks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Ekman, who's going to kind of run through a brief summary of what this, kind of summarize what our park system is right now, because the figures are pretty amazing. And then secondly, what the purpose of the document is.
Great, thank you, and good afternoon. Dan covered, the core crux of all of this. Our plan is outdated, and we need a new one. So we've engaged with some consulting team to help us plan for something that will take us over the next 10 years and beyond. Our last system-wide plan, as he mentioned, was 20 years ago. As you can imagine, a lot has changed. Our system has developed, our lands have changed, and some have stayed the same. And so we're ready to dive in and do a very comprehensive process with public engagement to learn what our community needs, what we're able to provide, and so forth. We have 16 public sites that host approximately 1.4 million visitors each year. Activities include camping, fishing, hiking, swimming, picnicking, generally enjoying the outdoors. The earliest time we're showing in our history search where parklands came to be for the county was 1905, with a considerable amount of development in the 60s, and then it's advanced since then. Right now, we have 11 parks, 4 water access properties, 1 corridor trail, the Springwater Trail, and 4 undeveloped properties in unincorporated areas. And there was a map attached with your packet, as well as a timeline for the plan that we're undertaking. Our staff team is small and mighty. We have 8 permanent staff that manage these parks that host these 1.4 million visitors. We do hire seasonals for the May through October timeframe, which is up to 22, which help us manage that. And we also have a very strong volunteer program, which helps us manage the sites. And there are 16 on-site volunteers that come in, and we have a variety of tasks that they help us with. Our annual operating budget is $2.6 million and comes from a variety of outside sources: park fees, the state RV fund, county forestry program timber harvest, and then we have 2 properties that produce revenue that go to county parks, and that's the Stone Creek Golf Club and the Boones Ferry Marina. Let's see, we have a very extensive public engagement process plan, and the consultants we've selected for this project are very seasoned in public engagement. So we're very excited to start that and have scheduled some meetings starting in January. 2 of the committees that will be formed are a Parks Advisory Committee and a Technical Advisory Committee. And this plan, in its early planning forms, has already been supported by the Parks Advisory Board, and they will continue to be involved and have 2 liaisons from the Parks Advisory Board on these technical committees. So we're envisioning a 19-member Public Advisory Committee. It's a pretty large group. And we're seeking to get representation from a really broad cross-section of people out in the community. And we'll be coming back to you to request a commissioner member at a future time as well. So our plan is to have this done by the end of next year, so 2026. And we're going to have a lot of very, community-inspired pieces in here. And we have a great aspect of it that's really intended to give us a functional guide that helps with decision-making. And as you all know, this helps all of us make decisions about park, funding, projects, core properties, and all of that as we go forward. So we're very excited about that and are open to questions.
Great. Any for questions? Daniel?
What, on the undeveloped property holdings, what's the status of those? Are they future? What is that?
That is a great question.
I love it when you say that, Dan, but
So-
that always scares me.
It is a fabulous question. You have a couple of things that came to light. One of the discussions that Sarah and I have had over the last couple of years isn't necessarily around new parks in certain areas. It's like liquidation of lands that aren't proactive right now in producing. And so, but again, where is a deeper dive into the fact of should we develop these or not? Essentially, a number of these are proposals that come from the community. Hey, we'd love to give you this piece of property and dedicate it for parks use. Sounds like a great idea, but it's the ability to have a plan to say, you know what, we've met the park's objectives in that area, maybe not in this area, so when an opportunity may come forward in a different area, then maybe the possibility to secure property there, maybe the possibility to liquidate undeveloped properties and look at areas that are deficient with parks and buy some and do some acquisition over in those particular areas as well. So that's kind of what we're looking for, is that guiding public engagement document to really tell us what is important, where are they important, where is a deficiency. So.
Okay, all right, good.
Go ahead.
So is there parking in the parks?
Yes.
If it's allowed.
That was a joke. So do we have any numbers on actually what the most frequented county parks are versus the ones that maybe are developed but they're not so frequented?
We do have counters at several of our parks and could probably take a look at that. Our overnight camping parks are typically the most frequented for the season. And then I would say the heavy hitters, the ones that you hear of, the Barton to Carver float in the summer, for example, the number of people there is overwhelming and quite higher than others. But we do have some numbers and can track trends and see where the most visited are versus the least. And we've been providing that to our consultants on this plan as well so that they can look at that and incorporate it into the planning.
Okay. I know that I've talked to a couple of my colleagues over the years about different aspects of the county parks, and we're not really, we're kind of like just keeping everything afloat, so to speak, trying to make sure that it's, we got some revenue to pay all the bills, but we're not adding parks, we're not developing parks and county parks per se, right?
We have, so a couple things that have happened over the last 2 or 3 years. One, we adjusted the general fund down and took the general fund out of the program. It wasn't that much to begin with. And we've also been proactively directing timber harvest revenue and more revenue from Stone Creek into there, and leveraging that against other monies that have come from Metro and other entities. So the desire is to build a robust revenue source, and a lot of our funding is fee generated as well. But it's like, how do we direct those revenues that we have to possibly expand or to possibly improve? There have been a number of projects of varying size that have improved, and I'm trying to think, it's the,
Barton Master Plan?
yeah, I want to be right.
So we do have Metro local share dollars that are coming online right now, and we have an extensive Barton Master Plan, and if you were tuning in a few years ago, we approved that plan, and it has several phases to it. And so the team is starting to look at some initial projects that will help build that Barton Master Plan out, as well as a few of our other overnight camping parks. We did a paving project this past summer that was part of that, and we have some other pieces. So can't say that there's no development happening. Barton is kind of the focal point of that right now because we have a master plan for that, and that's one place where we've gone through that process. And we have funding right now.
Okay, so you have some Metro shared dollars, right? And just roughly how much is that?
It's about $5 million.
About $5 million. And roughly, what's the reserves and contingency in county parks?
Oh, let's see.
There isn't a big, I don't believe there's a big reserve and contingency because we try to program the majority of the money. Right now, revenue that's coming in, we're getting at roughly at least $250,000 annually from Stone Creek. We're getting about, timber sales vary. We've got the last of it, the board approved 3 timber sales. First 2 have come forward. I think they're about $400,000 a piece. But we'd have to get back to you on the exact reserve and contingency. We did a lot of programming this next year to take advantage of those Metro dollars that are out there.
Right. Well, I appreciate that having the Metro dollars. That's kind of, I won't say one-time funding, but it's more one-time funding looking than an ongoing revenue stream, right? That that we can rely on or not. So with that said, I know we always try to create or help create a revenue stream, and I don't really know that we've made a lot of progress on having a healthy stream. Maybe that's my word I'm inserting here at this point. It's more of a sustaining stream, as I recall. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think that we're looking for ways to be creative with the assets that we have. And so when you're talking about the stream, the fees that are coming in from a lot of, I was actually shocked when BCS became a part of DTD that they have over 1 million visitors a year that go to those parks. That number is just mind-blowing to me. That is a lot of people. But it's more around the idea of how do we, so for example, if we have stranded assets that are properties that are out there that are undeveloped, that we're spending money on, and we don't need a park need, why do we have those? Can we liquidate those? Can we get revenue from those? Can we reinvest them in other areas, expansion, capital, or whatever it might be? And those are the questions we're really trying to answer right now, and it's really difficult in a vacuum to do that. Without information from the community, doing a deeper dive in the programs and the plans that we have, we don't like taking action that may limit some opportunity in the future without having a better idea. So yeah, our main revenue source is fees, to be frank, the majority of it. It has been self-sustaining throughout the years. There has not been a lot of capital growth expansion in the program since Metro and/or these other revenue sources got more directly pointed towards parks. But we do have money right now to possibly look at some opportunities. So,
Thank you. Yield back.
Diana Hill.
Have you already sent out, I see the Public Advisory Committee starts up in January. You've already put word out for that, for people to sign up?
We have started, we've made kind of invitations, by personal connection. We have a list that was brainstormed, and so most of those seats have been confirmed, but we still have some that are in the process of that as well.
Thank you.
and we will be, I want to highlight a note that Sarah had mentioned, we'd like to come back in front of the board in September, probably at issues, to see if there's somebody from the board that would like to be a part of that. We wanted to separate that out from this, though, but we'll be coming back forward in front of you here in January to kind of just have another discussion.
Go ahead, Ben. Or,
Yeah, thank you.
go me. Go ahead.
Either one of us.
You can go
I think we're-
first.
We're
You go
talking
first.
about the same issue. Man, what a great shot in the arm ONC lands could be to our parks further, right? The ability to actually sustainably harvest that timber in a way that goes back to local governments, that makes sure parks are sustainable and vibrant throughout the community, and we don't have to have these tough conversations because we're able to responsibly use our natural resources right in front of us to help our local community thrive, but we're working on that. Chair Roberts and I, at the invitation of Metro Council President Lynn Peterson, went out to the Eagle Creek, now nature preserve, that Metro bought a few years ago. It's 553 acres. It's just adjacent to the Clackamas River. It's a natural area that they've poured a bunch of money into to support fish habitat, wildlife, water quality, and they've kind of been figuring out what are going to do with the buildings, how are we going to restore this golf course back to kind of natural native species and those types of things. And it sits in Clackamas County, and the Metro has approached members of the board about partnering with us through Metro funding, and Lord knows wherever the other funding may or may not be able to come from, to purchase a chunk of that acreage to build out some type of outdoor park-like venue. There's different ideas around what that could be. So right now, that giant chunk of land, which is quite impressive, we toured it, is not available to the public. It is for conservation. But they're trying to help strike the balance to kind of create something interesting. I don't know if we have any chance in doing this inspirational project, which I think is quite exciting, because once again, it comes down to funding. I'm wondering if, as we look at our plan as a whole, as we have a potentially larger project looming where Metro's asking to partner with us because it's in our county, have you guys been involved yet in any of those conversations? If you haven't, I apologize for springing something on you. And should we be including something like that potentially if we're looking at an overall park system and having that conversation about what assets are working, not working, and things like that? So I kind of throw a lot out there, but I'm trying to kind of see how this kind of thing that we've been talking about is maybe adjacent to what we're talking about today.
Which is, I can't answer that question for you in regards to the park locations that we have and the services. Is it sufficient in that particular area? I know that it's difficult to say, it's difficult for us to come to you. I mean, you're going to come to us and say, hey, is there interest from the parks program to maybe purchase and acquire this? And what kind of monies do we have? It's difficult for us to say, yeah, you know what, that's an identified need in the area. We can't say that because we just haven't really studied that. It's definitely an opportunity that I think should be included in the master planning effort when we take a look at it, see what the potential is, having discussions with Metro's council and or their parks program about getting specificity around what that means. The concern, I'm going to just be honest, every single piece of property we take into our possession, if it's developed or not, it costs money.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to be blind. We want to be able to advise the Board of County Commissioners about those kind of decisions when you're being approached with that kind of stuff, so you're wholly educated about what that means. So when you know that that's an asset that you want to buy for the community and you have interest in it, we have funds that are available. We can assure to you that you have money to operate it. We can assure to you that we have the funding available to make it active and make it accessible to the public. Those are all questions that it's difficult to answer right now.
I know, right?
Without this plan. So
I'm just wondering, like, I would hate to have we go down this whole plan idea, and then this is a big potential part of the future plan, and we're not including it in the conversation. I know Metro is eager to be a really good partner with us and find a win-win here, and they're excited by it. I know Lynn Peterson's excited by it. Some local musicians were out there about opportunities. It was really exciting.
yeah.
I don't know, Chair, if you have any other thoughts around what we were approached with, and I don't know if even Metro has started that conversation with county staff at all, but.
A little bit to follow up with Ben's comment. I mean, I'm honestly jazzed. I mean, just to tell you. I mean, and we've had conversations, and I think, kind of in your executive summary, our first step is to work with the community to develop a county park system plan to help guide decisions making and planning over the next 10 years. I think that's absolutely what we need. And we do have so many parks. This is an opportunity. I think it's like looking at the big picture. And I think where we look at best use, right, is what you're talking about. I can just tell you, I know a lot of people love camping, and they're booked. You go to Lake Billy Chinook, they're booked for a year. I mean, as soon as it opens up, they're booked, and a lot of people just want to get away, and we have this gorgeous county with a lot of opportunities. And so my question too would be, like, which one of those could you expand into overnight camping or recreation areas? Is that the right one to do? The other thing I think is what I really get jazzed about is there's so much movement and funding for the locks. Right? That is going to be open and operating in the future, and which is also going to bring a lot of boat traffic and everything up, utilizing the Willamette. And there just is very few places. I mean, West Lynn has a park, and that is where, when I look at the marina right there, at Boone's Ferry, I mean, it's got an old house there. It's mostly industrial. I mean, it's boat repair stuff. And I know in Marion County, at the Butteville area, they're trying to put a dock in there, right? And so again, kind of looking at the people that want to use this and have access to it. As Dan, you and I have talked, they had a citizen upset because we put porta potties out at Wagon Wheel Park, right? And there's not much there but a gravel parking lot, so he was kind of furious. And I recognize that we need money to fund these parks, but also kind of seeing as should we step up and provide more service there? I don't know what the answer is, when you look at, so I think really this plan is going to help us identify what those priorities and best direction should go, and also taking a look at what Metro has, and there, I mean, so I couldn't agree with you more. Just keeping property is expensive, just for general maintenance, even if it's not being used. So I think it is really bright on both of your part to really look at coming up with this. And my question would be, do we, on this committee that you have, is it broad-based throughout the county? Because as you know, there's the Westland area, Metzler Park area is a whole nother different population, and I just want to know, is pretty diverse on getting that input from the public?
It is, and we can share. So we have the Technical Advisory Committee, which is folks typically in a professional capacity that have some linkage to parks, although it's loosely tied. We're still trying to get input from a variety. And then we do have, by category, community members on the Public Advisory Committee, liaisons, businesses, conservation, environment, recreation, elected representation, and we specifically called out a rural city. And then the one arena we still need to kind of break into is the education component. So we wanted to involve some people in the education arena. And we have recreation, river users, fishers, and a wide variety. And then we're within the categories trying to also ensure like geographic representation that's distributed throughout the county as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Ben, go ahead.
Really quick, do we, and I know we lack some infrastructure and ability to maintain the way we'd like some of these parks just based on money, but do we, when I go to Thousand Oaks to walk my dog, or I go to some other park, often you have to have day use passes. Does the county require day use passes to use a county park or for parking? Is that a source of our revenue? Is that a type of fee we have? I'm just curious.
It is. We do have day use passes, and so if you drive a vehicle in and park and then go use the amenities, you do have a day use fee.
Who enforces that?
Typically, our rangers do. It depends on the part of the year that we're in. So if we
Okay.
have the high season, we also have security, contracted security that can enforce that, as well as some of our other staff and volunteers.
Didn't we just look at those fees too? We
did.
did just look at those fees. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right. Oh, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I certainly think it's valuable to do the analysis of the study, and I was just looking at Milo MacGyver Park, for example, which is a state park, and looking at their fees and how they work, day use, or whether over overnight camping and parking fees and so forth. So I think there is obviously, it would be enlightening and informative to find out what other county parks are doing, and their analysis. Is there a business model to generate revenue? But I do have one question, and I'm just kind of curious about the productivity or not. So we're fee-based, so if we have a good tax revenue year, property tax revenue year, versus a poor one, county parks really isn't affected because you don't live on.
We don't live on our rate.
Right.
Yeah.
So when Metro acquires this property
Yep.
with the bonds, that's off the tax rolls, right?
Yep. It was a golf course.
Okay, so that actually, if you look at all the total property, and I'm sure the assessed value is going to be different everywhere, but that's a hit our general fund essentially takes, right?
Yeah.
553 acres, as beautiful as it is obviously worth a lot of money. But what that tax is, or if there is or is not a deferral, if it's owned by a private sector person who has a farm deferral on it or not. So I'm just saying is that, when we look at how parks are funded in other counties, I don't know if their AV or their general fund is being used to subsidize county parks. And I know that we're surrounded by rural cities that have parks in their cities, right? You have state parks. There is a lot of, I won't say competing, but there's a lot of choices for people to make state parks, again. So I support the effort. What I really want to see, and I'm just curious, is what are some existing, and I hope they do this, revenue opportunities that other jurisdictions around the state are using. I'm just concerned that while we have these grand ideas, they really might not really generate the money we think they're going to generate. That's the reality. I could sit here with 15 years of talking about something like this.
I totally appreciate that. I mean, I want to make sure that we're clear. The effort is not to go out there and come before you, though, and toss up a discussion around a new rate. That's not the intent of this.
Right.
I think the discussion is, there needs to be a discussion around funding models that are around, and to make sure that these are the right decisions to make and are fundable going forward and sustainable. And in all honesty, there's cost recovery in a lot of this stuff. So, cost recovery, we know what our cost recovery models are. But yeah, we'll take a look. I mean, there's a lot of models out there. Some are rate-based, some aren't. Some are fee-based, but we can take a look at that as a part of the study as well.
Yeah, and I guess the other part that pains me is that it just seems logical that the money we're paying in on our Metro Parks bonds for acquisition and all that land that's being used up could be utilized for use, right? And it could be a revenue generator, whether it's Metro creating or receiving the revenue, but to have it sit there as a reserve. A lot of our parks are reserves, right? I mean, if you want to look at like a natural reserve of sorts, right? So we are preserving a lot. So it's not as though that if the county owns it, we're doing something highly unusual that the Metro owned property isn't doing. So I just think there's an expectation that people have in order to really grow our county parks and really make them these fabulous places, but not having the revenue to do it is, I think, the part that pains me often, is that we need the resources to do it, and I just don't know how we get there. And I'm hoping that there's some analysis of that in this work.
And I think some of that discussion is also priorities. It's like, where are you going to prioritize those investments? And that's also some of the effort, so.
All right. Can I go to Billy first?
Totally.
Yeah. Billy,
Good
Mr.
timing
Williams.
For bringing this up, Commissioner West, because shortly before, the week before AOC, I got a call from the attorney on behalf of Metro about your meeting.
That's right.
And then the last couple of weeks went by, I had a voicemail message from her yesterday afternoon, just asking if there had been any conversation, and I left her a voicemail message in response after Gary and I talked today, late morning, that thanks for the reminder. We would find a way to do this. I don't know that this is the question of getting involved in the 553 acres, and we'd have to obviously involve you all, Dan. So it may be premature to put it on exec session, but I do want to be able to circle back with the attorney who's contacted me, sort of, you know, if there's interest, what that would look like. It sounds like there would have to be discussions with you all about
How are you going to fund it?
How
Where's it
you
going to
gonna-
be?
all of
How's it
that.
going to operate? All those are very good discussions that we talk about a lot regarding these acquisitions. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure in my follow-up conversation with her, it's accurate and gives Metro an idea of, okay, so is there anything to talk about? What does that look like? How do we prepare for a discussion? Lots of research, it sounds like. So again, I appreciate this coming up, since Gary and I just talked about it this morning.
Yeah, I don't think we can do a review like this, and if this is a bit giant looming potential without it being aware of and a part of the aware of it all and part of the conversation. So this was recently purchased by Metro. I think they spent like, I don't know, $6.5 million-ish on it. It came from a bond about Protect and Restore Land Program. It was a 2019 voter-approved parks and nature bond that Metro had some ideas about funding options too and opportunities. We wouldn't take the whole
Right.
553 acres. They were initially about 80 acres, and then all these really innovative ideas about like what to do with that and how to fund it, and maybe going to the state legislature. There's some issue around technical legal stuff where there might have to be the legislature might have to be involved, and all of that logistical stuff that will work out. But the numbers are around 80. And then here's the thing is, I get a little resentful when other entities come in and buy out large amounts of acreage in our county, and then we're not even allowed to access them, right? So there's some issues around that, but it is stunning. The big, beautiful white oaks out there. It's right on the river. Is it the Eagle Creek or Clackamas River right there?
Clackamas, I think.
Yeah, it's on. It spans over that. It's a really the overlooks and the views are beautiful. That's why it was a golf course, right? It was beautiful. And so I think, there's opportunity. And so I don't know. I don't know if we need to give, please continue the conversation. We're just two commissioners. I don't know if a third one needs to jump in and say, Billy, give the attention to this. I don't know. And I just think that the staff should be aware that these conversations are happening.
And we probably need to have another session.
You're a bit out of order at this point,
Yes.
but since you talked about it, do you want to direct Dan, sorry, Billy, it's really, at this point, staff to staff. Do you want to direct Dan to talk to Metro staff on what the possibilities are and bring it back to you?
Lynn at AOC had a long conversation. We talked for probably 40 minutes or 30 minutes about this, and she notified me that they had directed their attorney to talk with you, Billy. How it's supposed to go beyond that, I don't know, but I'm open to whatever those avenues are.
So
Correct.
I guess I'd ask my colleagues here, are you open to having Dan just at least have the conversation?
I'm fine to explore it. I think it could be explored, yeah. I would need to know a whole lot more about it,
totally.
and the cost and what that even means.
And Paul, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I can't help but think beyond this property.
Right,
Think about
right.
all of the Metro properties. This is not the topic, and this is not the place, but right now I'm scratching my head. How much property does Metro own in Clackamas County?
Yeah.
That's fenced off, that we don't have access to.
A lot.
Yeah,
How
a
many?
lot,
How many
a
acres?
lot.
And what's the assessed
Well,
value?
more than
of that?
553.
Well, there's,
Yeah.
a lot of those are for wildlife and bird protection too.
Yeah.
They are to keep hunters off properties, and they serve a purpose, so, yeah, it's understandable.
Dan's asking for more work. Yes, go ahead, Dan.
We don't do property negotiations like this. We can go out and do some research, and we can come back to the board and have a discussion with you. We know nothing about it. I know the fact that somebody met out there. That's all I know.
Yeah.
I don't know costs. I don't know what. Those are all discussions that we generally do in doing property negotiations in executive session. We can collect the data and come back to you at that point in time when we know more.
Should you continue with your attorney?
Yeah, I did ask in my voicemail message back to her today that if there was anything, any information she could provide,
Okay.
anticipating that the discussions would have to, or the research would have to be done, because other than what you've just described, we have nothing in
Totally, yeah.
in
I
writing
think we
or
have very
anything like
little.
that.
I think that was kind of the issue, with everything going on. I was looking at this kind of being down the road. So I think right now, if there's no more questions, this has been informational only. And I would turn to Gary. Do you need anything else from us right now?
So Billy and Dan will work on this Parks of the Metro issue and bring back to you in executive session. Otherwise, this was an informational update only.
Okay.
And staff will move forward and report back to you when they're done with their work.
All right.
Awesome.
So this will be our final policy session for the afternoon, but we have to come back.
So now we're going back to page 1. We're starting now with
Yes.
issues. That was rescheduled from this morning.
Gary, I was thinking about taking a short
sure,
break.
yes.
Is that all right?
Of course.
So let's take a short 5-minute break, and we'll come back and get right into this. Thank you.
Sorry, that's a little messy.
Oops, I should have done that, I guess.
Okay, you're good.
Oh, good. All right. Welcome, everyone, to Administrator Issues and Updates. December 2nd, 2025, County Administrator Gary Schmidt. Will you please call the roll? Do you need to do that again?
No, a roll call. Commissioner Schrader's out today. Roll call, Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Roberts.
Here. All right, just to remind everybody, we're going to be, fellow commissioners are going to be in this new space, existing space for the next few weeks while they're renovating and completing our new hearing room. And so I am now going to move to Gary. Before that, we're going to recess as the Board of County Commissioners, convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Rec District Board of Directors. Gary?
Thank you, Chair. This is Advisory Board and Commission appointments for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Andrew, go ahead, please.
The Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board, staffed by the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, currently has 4 openings due to term expirations and previous vacancies. Recruitment opened to the public in September of 2025 and closed in October of 2025. Through this recruitment process, 3 applications were received and 3 are recommended for appointment. The recommendation is as follows. Mackenzie Roller, to a first term ending October 2028. Joel Bergman, to a 5th term ending October 2028. And Benjamin Horner Johnson, to an 8th term ending October 2028. The Board of Commissioners could select candidates or require further recruitment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions?
Chair, I move to approve the slate.
Second.
All right. Director Savas has moved to approve the appointment of Mackenzie Roller, Joel Bergman, and Benjamin Horner Johnson to the Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board. Director Helm has seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Director West.
Aye.
Director Savas.
Aye.
Director Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. I'll now adjourn as...
Chair, Commissioner West had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to congratulate and thank Mackenzie Roller for stepping up for her first term, and then our 2 other members that are been there long-term doing this work.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And Mackenzie, thank you for jumping into this work to help out your community. It means a lot, and your service is greatly appreciated. That's it.
Oh, thank you. All right, I will now adjourn as North Clackamas Parks and Rec District Board of Directors and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. Gary?
Thank you. Next item, first item is, again, this is a proposed item for the consent agenda because it is something new or a significant dollar amount. We're bringing it to you first at issues to answer any questions you may have before it goes to the consent agenda. And this one is for the Juvenile Department. It is approval of a personal services contract with Parrot Creek Child and Family Services for short-term behavior stabilization youth residential placements. Agreement value is $4,242,942.50 for 5 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Human Services, the Oregon Health Authority, and $1,570,000 of budgeted county general funds. Christina McMahon, Director of the Juvenile Department, will give you a brief update. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Roberts, Commissioners. Great to be with you this afternoon. I'm excited to be here to ask you to place this on the consent agenda. We have been working for the last several years to rebuild much of the program capacity that we lost during COVID. And so sort of the last frontier on that has been residential treatment bed capacity. For about 20 years, Clackamas County Juvenile Department has taken advantage of leveraging Medicaid funding so that we can pay for, mostly pay, for having residential treatment beds available for young people in our community. What's very exciting about this particular contract is Parrot Creek has recently opened their new residential treatment campus for young people, and this is a state-of-the-art, amazing master's qualified personnel that work there. We're really excited that kids in our community will be able to take advantage of this, and this is part of the continuum of services that we offer to do everything we can to help young people be successful and be able to remain in their home communities, where research has shown that that leads to much better outcomes than committing kids and sending them to youth correctional facilities or out of county placements. So we're excited to be here to ask you for this. I want to clarify the dollar amount. The dollar amount reflects if every single bed we used, we have a budgeted line item to pay for this. If we could not, let me back up. We are actually looking at we're going to be coming before you with 2 additional residential treatment program contracts. They aren't ready to present yet. One will be with an organization called Claire Vita, and then the other one will be with the Marion County Juvenile GAP program. So those programs will be coming online as well. But after what we went through with COVID, where we lost residential providers because of capacity issues, losing staff, not being able to actually allow us to place young people in their programs because they couldn't serve those young people, we decided it was important to make sure that we had a contract that if we had to rely on one particular provider, it had the dollar amount to represent all of the capacity that we've budgeted for in our budget. So wanted to make sure I clarified that this contract does not mean that Parrot Creek will be receiving approximately $4.2 million from us over the next 5 years. It means that we have the ability to fully use them if they had the capacity and we had youth who needed to be placed. It is a fee-for-service contract. It is not a guaranteed bed contract. So I just wanted to make sure that I explained the large dollar amount.
Great. Commissioner.
Does it work a little bit like a match with the state, where we have the 1.5 and then they're maximizing our dollar based on our general fund contribution?
Yes, so the match is, we pay approximately 37% our general fund match, and then we're able to receive state reimbursements of approximately
There it is.
63%.
Okay. That's what I thought, okay. And I know that they just did a massive remodel and redid the entire property at Parrot Creek. It's quite impressive.
Yeah.
Is this a new contract with Parrot Creek because of the new availability of beds on their property here in Clackamas?
We did a request for proposals, and Parrot Creek submitted a proposal.
Okay.
And they were one of the providers that was selected.
So this is a new contract, though, am I correct? We didn't previously do this contract with them. They didn't have the capacity before they did this.
Right. We did have a previous contract in years earlier with their old facility.
Okay.
But as we know, their old facility
Yeah.
was demolished too.
Yeah.
Yes, so this is a new contract and this is a higher level of care than we had in previous years
Okay.
had.
And this is completely a separate contract, because I was going to ask the question about the other two, but those are being worked on, Marion County and the other one. So are they increasing capacity here where we don't have to send as many kids out of county? Like, are we not going to need to utilize as many beds at Marion County? Is this supplanting or a different opportunity than we previously done? Or is our number of beds and model kind of the same? We just have a different opportunity with Parrot Creek?
Well, in the Marion County Juvenile Department, we currently have a contract, as you know, for our detention beds,
Right.
which is not a treatment program.
Okay,
It's
okay.
strictly the equivalent of, I hate to use that term, but
So they don't get
jail.
any treatment in detention?
They have resources with counselors who come in,
Okay.
but it's not an organized
Designed.
program
Okay,
of
yeah.
treatment. But your question's interesting because Marion County does operate its own program called the GAP program
Yep.
on that campus, and we do anticipate we will be able to move young people who are in detention out sooner and potentially let them have I would describe it as a step-down opportunity, and that is a treatment program.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so that answered part of my question, so I guess I'm going to ask it differently, just so I can understand the scale and different facilities, different services, and so forth. So let's just roll the clock back 2 years ago. How many total bed spaces did we have, or lease or pay for with contracts total of all different types for youth?
We've had in our budget, well, it's changed a lot over the last couple of years. 2 years ago, we were using Multnomah County, and we had 8 guaranteed detention beds. And we had in our budget the allocation in our budget to pay for up to 5 residential treatment beds on any given day. So 2 years ago, we had the funding in our budget to pay for up to 13 of the various types of beds. However, the issues we've been having with the residential treatment providers being able to come back online, get restaffed, and be able to actually provide the capacity we need. 2 years ago, we were not spending that budgeted allocation because we couldn't access the capacity that we needed. So that just was included in our end-of-the-year fund balance return to the general fund. But now, we're actually going to be able to have this capacity. So in Marion County currently, we contract for 4 guaranteed detention beds, and then we'll have the capacity for these 5 residential beds. So that's a total of 9 beds of some sort of out-of-home placement resource for our department.
Okay, so we went from 13 to 9.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not increasing the capacity, per se. If we actually, we're 4 beds less, right?
Right.
Okay. So now for the money question.
Yes.
Is the 4.2 plus the other contracts in total more than it was before for the lesser amount of 9 that we're targeting? Or is it more?
I don't have that number on the top of my head, Commissioner Savas, but we're paying substantially less for the detention contract. If we had stayed with Multnomah County, our rate would have gone up to $620 per day on July 1. We pay $272 a day in Marion County. So it's hard. I could easily get you the math on that, but I believe we're still less than we were 2 years ago when we were with Multnomah County.
Okay. So, so in practice versus what's available, have we ever peaked at the 9 or the 13 number? Have we ever peaked where we used up all those beds? Or is it, what's really the I won't say average, but the peak and the average for utilization of the beds?
Wow. Well, we are the lowest user of detention beds in the state. I have been responding to a media request about this, so that's fresh in my mind. So when you ask me what the peak is, it's interesting. We have a wonderful collaboration with Washington County. When we entered into the new contract this year with Marion County, Washington County and Clackamas agreed to pay for 20 detention beds in a unit that they were not using. Washington County is paying for 16 beds. Clackamas County is paying for 4 because we use way less beds than they do. But our mutual agreement, we have an IGA in place that just recently went into place. We agree that if one of us is not using all of our capacity in Marion County, the other one can access that. So every time we've gone over 4 since July 1, we have not had to pay an additional fee for service bed rate for detention like we used to have to pay. Under our new contract, Washington County is letting us use their unused capacity at no charge. So we're saving quite a bit of money. So there have been a few days. This summer, we went up, I think for about a week, I believe we went up to 7 kids in detention, which is a lot for us. Today, we have 2. So it's been a very positive collaboration for Clackamas County.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you. Take this opportunity to also thank you for your service, by the way. You've done a marvelous job since you've been here, so just appreciate your good work.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Commissioner.
See any other questions? I have a couple. Again, I'll echo what Commissioner Savas said. Just want to thank you for your years of service and wish you all the best. We got you here for a little bit longer, so thank you. One of the questions I had to do with justice-involved juveniles and non-justice-involved juveniles. And I know we have the Recovery High School, and we have Parrot Creek, we have some other options, and I guess, do they intermingle justice-involved with non-justice-involved kids at like Parrot Creek, for example, and other facilities? I mean, how does that work?
Well, in detention, that's against the federal law about the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Act. It changed many years ago so that we were not allowed to house status offenders in detention facilities. So that's not an issue in detention. With Parrot Creek, they serve young people that are under the jurisdiction of the Child Welfare Agency, Oregon Department of Human Services. So there are times that there could be some commingling, but on the new campus, for example, they have a special unit where they're housing their Oregon Youth Authority young people. But the way the campus is set up, I can't say that I believe that there would never be any interaction between a young person who's there because of their child welfare involvement versus a youth who's there because they're coming in through our department or through the Oregon Youth Authority.
Yeah, and so I guess my question, I want to be clear on this, so is if you just say had a non-juvenile justice parent that had a child that they were concerned about addiction issues, how would you refer them, or what would be your game plan on that? Would it just be private treatment providers, or what would you do in that situation?
Well, we, in our Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center, our 24-hour facility, we have a lot of young people that aren't juvenile justice involved. We have police who bring us runaways that they have picked up, young people that have a curfew violation, which isn't a criminal offense, but it's concerning behavior. So when those young people come to our center, we're doing our intake process, we're doing our screenings, for example, our suicide screening, our we have a lot of different screenings we do, but we are also reaching out to the parents and letting them know about different resources. Another thing that we do is every young person who comes through our door, no matter what, for whatever the reason is, we're doing a check with the Child Welfare Hotline to see if there's an open case, if there are any dynamics there that we need to know about. So our staff is talking to the parents and the guardians when they come to pick up their youth, if it's a non-criminal type reason that they were brought there, and talking with them about the various resources, giving them materials to take home. We have a service that we're doing with that's focused on those non-criminal type cases. It's a family navigation service that we refer them to. So for example, the most common one is youth that are runaways. A lot of times the parents are struggling to know how to serve those young people and how to get them connected with resources. There's a lot of family conflict. So that family navigation provider that we have actually works. It's a voluntary program. Not every family takes us up on it, but we have a brochure. We talk about it with the family while they're in our JIC and then refer them to that program because we noticed that was an area where being a runaway is one of the highest, most impactful risk factors that leads to being involved in criminal activity. So we noticed that was a gap. There's nobody really serving those kids, so we were able to offer that service. So we tried to make referrals for drug and alcohol assessments, et cetera, but Yeah, sometimes it's hard when they need residential treatment and they're not a child welfare case, situation, that young person isn't involved with child welfare and they haven't committed a crime. That's sort of the land of where kids can fall through the cracks.
So I know one thing that the board's been working on really is we're constantly on the hunt for money, particularly in the area of treatment, addiction treatment, mental illness treatment. And so it might help us if by chance you even had maybe an annual report we could look at that kind of shows where kids are being placed. I'm sure you probably already have that, but it'd be great to see. Maybe you can get a copy we could spread around to everybody. So with that, I don't have any other questions. This will, I'm sorry, Paul.
I just want to kind of, great conversation, just a time check. I know that Commissioner West had to leave, and I got a commitment as well, so I don't know what available time we have left, but.
Maybe we can pick up, right? Okay. So no concerns. This will move to our business meeting, it looks like on December 4th for final approval, and thank you for coming, and again, congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you so much.
Yes, this will be your last time before the board. Thank you, Christina, for your 10 years of dedicated service to Clackamas County. You are known nationally as an expert in juvenile justice, and you represent us very well. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, next, Forest Service Zigzag Lease Offer Response Letter. Mary Rumbaugh and Shannon Callahan from Health, Housing, and Human Services will present. There's a draft letter in your packet. Go ahead, please.
You're faster than I am. Good afternoon, Chair Roberts and Commissioners. So we're here today requesting the approval for submission of a letter from the board to the U.S. Forest Service waiving the county's right of first refusal on a parcel of land in Zigzag. This action would allow a proposed workforce housing development to move forward. I'm going to hand it over to Shannon Callahan, who's going to hit some of the highlights.
Thank you. Good evening. The U.S. Forest Service, as Mary said, has identified a significant need for workforce housing in the Zigzag area. To meet this need, they have identified a specific parcel that could support a workforce housing development. The proposed concept includes approximately 50 units of housing that would be offered to employees in either private or communal living arrangements. It also includes 6 trailer pads with utility hookups to accommodate employees who live in recreational vehicles or trailers. The Forest Service plans to fund infrastructure, site prep, and construction, but it does not plan to own or operate the site. It would like to lease the site to Northwest Community Housing Foundation for the development and operation of the housing. Federal law does require, however, that the Forest Service offer first the lease of the land to the county in which the land is located. So in this case, Clackamas County has the right of first refusal over this parcel of land before they make it available for other purposes. We do not believe that the county would benefit in taking on this lease. We do, however, believe that the workforce housing project is worthy and should proceed and is beneficial to both the county and the broader community. If the county were to choose to accept this lease and still wanted to proceed in the project, we would effectively only become a conduit. We would be taking on risk and administrative burden, and then we would also be subleasing the property to another entity for workforce housing development. We believe this would just complicate the project unnecessarily. For these reasons, we recommend that you submit a letter similar to what is attached in your packet to the Forest Service declining the first right of refusal, but in the same letter, recommend expressing Clackamas County's full support for the workforce housing development to move forward. And that concludes our comments, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'm okay with the letter.
I move we approve the letter to the Forest Service as presented.
Second.
Commissioner Helms moved to approve the letter to the Forest Service as presented. Commissioner Savas is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the poll.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Gary, what's next?
Next, Metro Supportive Housing Services Potential Reforms Update. Presenting is Mary Rumbaugh, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and Emily Klepper, Policy Advisor in the board's office. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, evening again, and I'm actually going to be quick and hand it right over to Emily for the summary.
All right, good afternoon. So we are here to provide a quick update on Metro's supportive housing services reform activities. There is a memo in your packet. Quick recap. So over the last couple of years, Metro has looked at various elements of the SHS program to tweak, create efficiencies. They have now refined and actually quite narrowed the scope of their proposal. Metro Council is looking at them over the course of the next 2 weeks. There are 5 elements that are part of the existing reform package. I'm happy to go over them one by one or answer any specific questions you might have. But they are having 2 public hearings, one on Thursday and then one on December 18th to finish adopting this package in particular. So I'll stop and let you ask questions.
Go ahead, Ben.
I would just echo what Emily said. The chair and I worked on this through the task force, which I was co-chair of with Council President Lynn Peterson. The scope is much, much narrower than we started on this journey. We were talking about all rate changes and all kinds of different things that honestly were controversial and gave us some heartburn. I am not finding a lot in this packet or at this current proposal I don't love everything, but nothing that would make me not support this going forward. We worked really hard to change the makeup of the oversight committee to have more electeds than non-electeds in the oversight. We got that by 2. One thing that's a little wonky is that Metro has 3 members. Each county has 3 members. Then there's 3 cities plus Portland, and then I think Multnomah County gets a city. Right? I don't have it right in front of me, but doesn't, yeah,
Yes.
Multnomah County gets a city, but it also gets Portland, where the rest of the counties get 1 city. So like we could have Lake Oswego be our city representative, Beaverton could be Washington counties, but then Multnomah County kind of gets 2 because they get the city of Portland because of the size, and then 1 other city within Multnomah County, like Gresham or something. Even though Metro provides the oversight, but even though this is really led by counties, they do have 3 representatives on the oversight board. There's some service providers, there's a business liaison, there's some non-voting members, ex officio, sorry. And so overall, from what this was and the size of it to where it is today, I can live with this, and so I'm supporting this today. I didn't know if the other commissioners had any questions, because we've gone through quite a long process to get to this point, but I wanted to make sure we answered any of your questions.
Paul.
So I guess, yeah, it does look like it's a lot narrower, and there was discussion around redirecting some of those monies, this SHS monies towards sticks and bricks. That's out now?
Correct.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
You've got a, so while I heard the governance model and adding Portland having an extra seat, that's similar to JPAC.
It's very similar.
it's
It's
very-
modeled
yeah.
after MPAC and JPAC.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So my question is that the distribution of the money still goes to the counties,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
There's no change in the formula,
Correct.
Correct.
okay? And I see a question or a concern about moving the 5% regional investment fund to the regional government would disrupt already approved programs, complicating. So where are we with that? It sounds like that's still a concern?
So we're just going on the record. There has been some offline conversations. Metro has not made any indication that they would change who is holding the 5%. We just wanted to preemptively say it's working to leave the money with the counties so that they can disperse it and utilize it for regional purposes, but come out of the county coffers. So that's just another way for us to maintain control and responsibility, and it's working, so why fix something that seems to be working well?
Okay. All right. Answers my questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick couple comments. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner West for his leadership. He was, as being the co-chair on that in the Tri-County area, this was a big issue. It was a huge time commitment. I know Emily was a huge support, and as kind of representing the Tri-County chairs, I got to see some of that in action, but I will just say that Ben was really stepping up in a leadership role regionally, and we had the great support of Emily, so thank you. I know she was incredibly busy helping provide a lot of information, so, and also that, I will just say that, I mean, they were wanting to go back out to the voters, and we had just, with Ben's leadership, really kind of said, look, you know, we need to show results, measurable outcomes, and that the system is working. And so I credit to our staff here that doing a great job. I think that we're glad we got that delayed, so nice job, Ben.
Thanks.
So with that, this is just information only, and so we'll move on to the next item. Gary, what's next?
Thank you. Next, advisory board and commission appointments. Andrew, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the Clackamas Workforce Partnership Board currently has one renewal, as the current member completed the partial term of a seat that was vacated midterm. Recruitment has not been open to the public, since this position is open only to representatives of labor organizations as prescribed by the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. The recommendation is as follows. Ben Nelson to a first full term ending December of 2028. The Board of Commissioners could select other candidates or require further recruitment, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Move to approve Ben Nelson to his first term.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Savas has moved to approve the appointment of Ben Nelson to the Clackamas Workforce Partnership. It's been seconded by Commissioner Helm. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call a poll?
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
And Gary.
Next, National Association of Counties membership dues, the annual membership dues for Clackamas County to be a member of the National Association of Counties is due. The amount is $8,428 for one-year membership. This is budgeted using county general funds. I'm just seeking your approval today to authorize the payment for the NACO dues, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Savas has moved to approve the payment of the NACO annual funds. Commissioner Helm has seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
All right, Gary. what's
Next, review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, December 4th, 2025 at 10 a.m. You will have two public hearings. Both are second readings of ordinances. The first is the noise control. The second is budget development. You have consent agenda for the county and water environment services. If you have any questions on any of these items, please let me know prior to Thursday so that I may answer them or have staff in the room to answer them for you on Thursday. That is that for that. Next, final item is Commissioner Communications.
Okay. It has been quite a long day, and I know Commissioner West has to leave here soon, so if somebody has a point they'd like to make under Commissioner Communication, I'd say go ahead, and if not, I'm looking for any.
Chair, I move we adjourn.
Hey,
Second.
Paul, we're catching up, aren't we? With that being said, this concludes our administrative issues and updates. Thank you all for joining us. We'll return at tomorrow. Or Thursday. Thursday. We'll see you Thursday.
At 5.